far as getting the background. Like, some show up, some I couldn't get the background.
Oh, what you do is you click the item, and then you click the report on the right. There's a little bar. You click it, and it worked for me.
Some of it did. Some of it I couldn't get to come up.
Yeah, but this thing's working now.
Look though, I opened mine up and it all downloaded on Wednesday, the first night it came in.
Maybe I waited too late because there was an update thing. I hit the update, and then my battery's low. And when I came back and tried to get it, then I couldn't get it.
That's all I could figure. I opened mine up for a glitch because everyone else glitched.
No, I'm still getting the same stuff. I can't get past. Oh, there it is. It showed up. Cool. Oh, it says in progress.
See, I always get rid of all the old ones too. It's like you never.
I should do that. I was editing.
Okay. Okay, I will.
The day after I clean it off.
I got it.
Sorry, guys. I was trying.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Board of Supervisors meetings. It's great to see everyone here this morning. Would you all please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. We will be led this morning by Supervisor Ennis.
Salute pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. The first item that we are going to be taking up this morning is item number 1. That's a presentation given by Public Financial Management regarding the Annual Administrator's Report for the Millennium Fund.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Supervisors. Nice to see you. It's hard to believe it's already been a year, but my colleague and I'm Lauren Brandt from PFM. This is my colleague, Allison County. And every year, around this time, we provide an update to the county's Millennium Fund program. I'm going to have Allison kick it off to talk a bit about the economic environment over the last year, and then I'll talk about some of the strategies employed for the program.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm just going to give a little update on the economic environment so you have a sense of what's been going on in the environment we've been investing the Millennium funds in over the past year. The economy continues its slow but steady recovery since the end of the recession. The employment sector has been fairly positive recently. The unemployment rate has moved down. It's now about 7.4%. We're adding about 190,000 jobs a month, so that's a good sign. The housing sector has also improved a lot recently. Sales are up, prices are up, foreclosures are down. But with that, we still see fairly weak growth in the form of GDP. The last 3 quarters all under 2%, which it's definitely a good thing we're growing, but under 2% is not that impressive. And that's because we still are facing some headwinds. I mentioned unemployment is improving, but it's still pretty high, and consumers still aren't out there spending like they used to. In addition, globally, Europe has been in a recession. Other countries in Asia, such as China, has had slower growth, and that impacts export, importing, and then U.S. GDP. And then also the government spending cutbacks. So with the sequester that started earlier this year, the government is reducing they're forced to reduce their spending by about $1 trillion over the next 10 years. So that's impacting GDP. But that said, things are improving just slowly. In this environment, investors are still a little hesitant, and as such, have been big players in the bond market, treasury and agency bonds, corporate bonds, those sectors that we invest the Millennium funds in. And as such, interest rates have remained very low over the past few years. And on top of that, the Federal Reserve is trying to keep rates low. They're intentionally, artificially lowering rates. In the short end, with the target, Fed funds target rate, they're keeping that at 0 to 0.25%, really anchoring rates below 2 years. And then in the longer end, QE3, the Fed is purchasing $85 billion a month of long-term treasuries and agency mortgage-backed securities in an effort to keep long-term rates low, to encourage borrowing, to encourage growth. And so I'll just skip to the next page where we show the interest rates recently. The chart on the left is the 2-year U.S. Treasury yield. And as you can see, it goes from April 1st of last year to April 1st of this year, as the report date as laid out in the documents is April 1st of 2013. And the 2-year really hasn't moved much, between 20 and 30 basis points over the past year. And then the chart on the right just gives you a sense of rates, yields of all maturities in the Treasury sector from 3 months out to 10 years from this April compared to last April. And you can see here rates are low across all sectors, and over that time period actually moved lower. And so as I mentioned, this is the environment we've been investing in. And that I'm just going to move into some of the actual Millennium Fund, the values, and what we've been doing. Just a little refresher on the background and objectives of the program. In 1999, the county issued $45 million of bonds, and that was in response to the 1998 settlement agreement between a number of tobacco companies and a number of states across the country, whereby the tobacco companies have to pay those participating, including Tulare County, an annual payment. And it's with those payments that the county is using to pay back the bonds. In 2006, the bonds were privately placed, which has been a great benefit to the county. It changed the interest rate from a variable demand to 1-month LIBOR plus 25 basis points. And as of April 1st, that was 0.45% was the borrowing rate. In addition to that, the private placement removed a lot of the fees that the county was paying, a letter of credit fee, rating fee, and that saved the county a lot of money, especially over the past few years during the credit crisis. And then finally, just the goals of the program, which have been in place since the beginning, and that's to achieve and then maintain parity, to earn an investment rate above the borrowing rate, and then to do all that safely, make sure there's enough liquidity to pay off the bonds, the interest and principal payments, and also to not lose principal through the process. So as of April 1st, 2013, which I mentioned is the report date of the program, the value of the bonds was the value of the program was $52.2 million. And that includes, the program's made of 3 different funds. There's the bond fund, which is used to pay the monthly debts, or the monthly interest payments, as well as the annual principal payment and some of the fees associated with the program. The Millennium Fund is really the core of the program, and that's where the program's made to grow. And then finally, the Tobacco Settlement Fund, and that's just funded once a year when the tobacco payments come in, and the money's there for about a month and a half before it's moved to the other 2 funds. And as I mentioned, the value is $52.2 million, and that's after the county's $3 million apportionment from last July, but it's before the $5.2 million payment the county received this year in April, after April 1st. And you might notice the $5.2 million is quite a bit higher than we've seen in the past, and that is because a settlement was done in December. We mentioned in the past a few of the tobacco companies had been fighting some of the claims, and as such were withholding some of their payments. Well, in December, that was resolved. And so those states that accepted the settlement, California was one of them, received the funds that had been withheld, and for the county that resulted in an additional $2 million this past year. Page 5 here just shows a summary of the apportionments the county has taken over the past the past 14 years. The bond documents allow the county to take out up to $3.5 million to use for various projects. This past year, in 2013, just a month ago, the county withdrew $2.5 million. And since the beginning, the county has taken $37.7 million, which has been very valuable. And it also shows the value of the program. As I mentioned, the value is $52.2, and that's after all these funds have been taken out. And this page just discusses the unwind position. I mentioned that achieving and maintaining parity is a goal of the program. And what that means is that the value of the program exceeds the outstanding principal of the bonds. And that's true. This past year, that was $14 million. The county achieved parity back in about 2002, and since then it's grown, mostly been growing. Just a reminder, the unwind position means if the county wanted to pay off the bonds right now and collapse the program, they would have sufficient funds to do so.
And that unwind figure that Allison was referring to is a direct result of the difference in yield or spread between the borrowing cost and the performance on the fund. And as you can see reflected here, that's been about 0.43% or 43 basis points over the life of the program. Much of that has been achieved through active management strategies. Over the course of the past year, what we have utilized is a lot of high-quality corporate notes, and because of the higher credit fundamentals, more solid fundamentals of the corporate sector, and their significantly higher yields, we've found this sector very attractive. The other thing that we have done is to capture the market appreciation. As interest rates have continued to come down, the existing securities in the portfolio have appreciated, and we've captured some of that market appreciation and reinvested it back into the program. Last but certainly not least, one of the primary ways that we are able to really match against the borrowing cost, which again is such a great thing about that private placement with DEPFA, is the 1 month plus LIBOR plus the 25 basis points allows us to know exactly what index we need to target. So there's floating rate securities out there with similar 1 month LIBOR, even 3 month LIBOR indices that allow us to match the borrowing rates. So as interest rates will move, we have investments that will move as well in line with the borrowing rate and actually exceed those yields. So on page 9, we see the mix of securities in the Millennium Fund program. More weighted, as you can see, in the high-quality corporate note arena. The issuer names are listed on the right-hand side, very high-quality, diversified companies with very solid balance sheets. And we'll talk a little bit more about corporate fundamentals here in a minute. But also we have some agency securities as well as money market fund cash as well. And that mix of securities has changed over time. Looking back over the history of the program since June of 2000, you can see this is the various investment sectors that we've utilized in the program, and those allocations have changed over time based on market conditions, market opportunities, as well as the county's borrowing rate. And so as those have changed, we've shifted the allocation, and right now, like we've moved from the state pool in 2002, 3, and 4, when that had a more attractive investment rate, which is called LAIF, the Local Agency Investment Fund, to more weighted in agencies during the credit crisis. And now that corporate fundamentals have improved, we've more allocated to the corporate sector. And the reason the corporate sector is attractive is because, again, as I mentioned, the balance sheets are actually in much better shape than they were prior to the financial crisis. A lot of that is due to regulations, so requirements, but also due to demand, consumer demand. Retail sales are higher than they've been in years, and so that creates consumer demand, earnings, and flush balance sheets. So Apple is a good example. They didn't have to issue bonds, but you saw them in the portfolio. But they wanted to take advantage of the low borrowing costs. They have, almost $1 trillion of cash on their balance sheet, but they're taking advantage of low borrowing rates as well. And you can see the risk on the left-hand side of the corporate sector has declined quite a bit. This is a credit default swap. Essentially, it's just insurance that you would pay on a high-quality corporate bond, and that has declined significantly over the last year, making this sector more attractive. Now, I don't want to say that there's not risks involved with corporates, but we do have a very thorough, very rigorous credit process that we employ, not only before we purchase the corporate bonds, but also over the life of the investment. So we monitor those very closely. Never had a security that defaulted or had any problems during the credit crisis. The other advantage of corporate securities you can see on the right-hand side is their yield advantage relative to treasuries and federal agencies. So, for example, a 5-year high-quality corporate note has a yield that is about 0.85% higher than a comparable maturity treasury. On page 12, we just take a quick look at the maturity distribution of the portfolio. The maximum maturity we can go out for these securities is 5 years, but you can see that we're keeping bulk of the investments under the 3-year area. for interest rate risk reasons. We want to mitigate that interest rate risk. We're employing more of a barbell approach as we approach a higher interest rate environment, keeping some funds in the shorter end of the yield curve so we have the flexibility to capitalize on higher rates when they rise. But also we want to make sure we don't know when that's going to happen, so we want to make sure that we have the longer term investments locked in to provide that yield advantage relative to the borrowing rate. Speaking of higher interest rates, actually we just saw here in May and June interest rates spike up thanks to the could moment by Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke, who said they could start tapering the quantitative easing program that Allison referred to earlier towards the end of this year. That caused interest rates in the long end of the yield curve, which is reflected on the left-hand side and the table on the right-hand side of this page, to move higher, mostly out past the 2-year area. But it's still, as you can see, on the left-hand side, the yield curves, which are essentially just interest rates for a variety of maturities plotted into what we call a curve. The interest rates move significantly higher just in a 3-month time frame, but they remain anchored at that 0% level thanks to the Fed funds rate being at 0 to 0.25%. So that causes some steepness in the yield curve, which makes some advantages for us in the Millennium Fund program over the next year or so as we can capture higher interest rates and a wider spread relative to the borrowing costs. And that's exactly what we're going to continue to do here in this coming year. And what we're going to, and first and foremost, of course, is the safety of the program. Safety, liquidity, and then yield, utilizing some of the strategies that I mentioned, including trying to identify more of those floating rate corporate notes, as well as we start to see things in terms of changes in the interest rate environment, we will be flexible and alter the strategy there as well. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from board members? Supervisor Wardley?
Lawrence, good to see you again as always. I know that, initially when the plan was hoped that we would acquire end up with about $70 million of assets, and the hope was, of course, we'd have enough interest rates that would be kind of like an endowment to provide sufficient funds to continue to fund our capital projects. Are we on target to still accomplish that objective, do you think, at this point, or is that still to a wait-and-see situation in terms of what the future brings as far as return on investments?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, we are on target, and because of the performance of the fund, even the challenging interest rate environment has helped to grow the portfolio over time. And actually, we're ahead of projections of where we had the initial projections in '99, as you'll recall, and then we actually updated those in 2006. So even despite the zero interest rate environment, we've maintained course with what we had laid out and actually are ahead of projections based off of the 1999 and updated 2006 numbers.
Any other questions or comments? Supervisor Shida?
One of our contributors.
Yeah, exactly. Supervisor Shida contributes to the tobacco funds or tobacco company's revenue and their payments that they send the county. So thank you, Supervisor Shida.
I'm going to the reservation. Basically, when Supervisor Cox and I were elected 9 years ago, 10 years ago, this used to be a very large issue within the community of how the Millennium Fund was being spent, or were we solvent? And because of the change in policy, that we've had this annual meeting and update that has cleared up any conception of what was going on with the fund. So I thank you very much for your presentation, and it's been very welcomed by our community that people know exactly where we stand financially with the Millennium Fund. So thank you.
And thank you as well for the invitation to come and present. I know y'all are very busy, so I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Anything, Gene? Okay. Thank you very much, Lauren.
Thank you.
Safe travels. All right. The next item that we're going to be getting onto this morning is item number 2, and that's public comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for members of the public to comment on any item not appearing on today's agenda. Public comment can and will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under public comment this morning? Go ahead, Gene.
Thank you, Chair. Gene Rousseau, County Administrative Officer. I just wanted to make a couple of announcements regarding some changes to our county family. And I'll start over in our Health and Human Services world. Congratulations are in order to Tim Lutz to be promoted to Director of Fiscal Operations. Congratulations, Tim. It's well deserved. Jason Britt has recently been named Director of Health Services. God bless you, Jason. Juliet Webb, who used to be a member of the CEO's office, was named Interim Director of Human Services, and I'm sure she'll do very well. We will skip the human resources until the announcement's made. Rhonda Shulstrom has been named Interim Human Resources Director to replace Mr. Cardell, who left, and we won't say where he went. And last but not least, but most importantly, my office has recently hired Mary Lindsay as an Assistant CAO, and I look forward to working with Mary. She's got a great reputation, excellent background in municipal government, and she will be a tremendous benefit to Tulare County. So I just want to make those announcements.
Great. Any other speakers during public comment this morning? We've got one. Please state your name and address for the record as well.
Sean Howell with the Mastagni Law Firm. It's out of Sacramento. I'm here to speak, actually, provide public comment on item R from the closed session. I coordinated my time to be here this morning, so I do have a handout. I'll keep this very brief, obviously, but I do have a handout for the supervisors. I'd ask that when the supervisors, when you adjourn to closed session, to consider item R. It's a disciplinary termination appeal. The administrative law judge heard the matter, and in our opinion, I think it's very clear from not only the brief that I've provided you, but the opening closing briefs of both parties and the decision itself of the arbitrator or administrative law judge. He abused his discretion. He found inconsistent with the weight of the evidence. The findings that he made are not supported by the facts, and therefore I'm asking that the Board of Supervisors return a decision reversing or rejecting the decision, the recommendation of the administrative law judge, and place this employee back to work. The most important point here is that the ALJ's entire decision pivots on one factual intention that my client made, and it's an interaction between two inmates. I don't want to get into too much more detail, but the administrative law judge claims that there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever to support my client's claim of what happened between these two inmates. Nothing could be further from the truth. The actual accusation that county council and the department put together, accusing my client, that precipitated the administrative law judge hearing, admits that there was contact that my client described between these two inmates. That's the least of it. One of the inmates is pulled aside and on video is seen mimicking the actual contact that the other inmate had with him. For some reason, the administrative law judge considered none of this evidence. Both inmates admit that there was contact. Now, they characterize it as a friendly little bump, but the perception of the individual, the employee in this case, at the time that he was viewing it is what's important. And if you read through what the experts say, you read through the decision of the administrative law judge, he discounts our expert on that one sole point. He doesn't believe that the video shows anything. On that, I will submit, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone here else wishing to speak during public comment? Mr. Under.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, CAO, and legal counsel. Good morning. My name is Mike Boudreau. I'm the undersheriff of the Tulare County Sheriff's Department, representing Sheriff Bill Whitman. In reference to this particular case, with the memo that's been set before you with counsel to the ex-employee, the violations were clear, the violations were egregious, and there is evidence to support the recommendation of dismissal. Dismissal in our department does not come lightly. It does not come lightly with the county, and we take it very seriously. County counsel was involved from the very beginning steps of this process, and the employee received due process at every level. He received due process during the administrative law hearing, where an administrative law judge also heard numerous testimonies, evidence that support dismissal. I am confident that due process was completed. I am confident that the evidence supports the recommendation of dismissal, and we ask that the board in their closed session uphold the administrative law judge's ruling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Under. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak during public comment? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public comment period, and I'll move to item number 3 on our agenda, and that's Board of Supervisors matters. And today we will start with Supervisor Ishida.
I get to be first since I missed last meeting. Well, I have a report on my scientific trip to Pex Canyon in the Golden Trout Wilderness. I did not see one yellow-legged frog on my entire trip of 6 days. Which brings up something that bothers me is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services looking at broad brushing the Sierra Nevadas, listing this frog and another toad, that there are areas in the Sierra Nevadas that do not have and have not had yellow-legged frogs, which I believe that they really need to survey where those frogs are, and if they go forward, they need to geographically define where the supposedly proposed endangered species actually reside, other than broad brushing 12 counties throughout the Sierra Nevadas. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Well, if I find any toads or frogs, I might put them on Citrus Grove near Lindsay. So I want to give you a heads up.
Oh, I forgot. There's another
Might be
observation.
habitat.
I caught some golden trout when I was there,
Okay.
and none of them were big enough to swallow one of those frogs.
Thank you, Supervisor. Next, we'll go to Supervisor Cox.
As the board knows, we are currently working on some grant opportunities, working with our probation department and the Step Up program, looking at an art program that would occur countywide as well as in our juvenile detention facilities. So we've been putting a lot of, I want to compliment Allison for putting a lot of heart and soul into this, and we are, I think, moving close to having our proposal letter that we'll be sending up to this foundation soon, within the next couple of weeks. So we're excited about this. We're excited about being able to partner with our probation department to actually provide some additional activities and programs for our youth and our juvenile detention facilities as throughout the county. So been working very hard on that. Other Step Up programming. We've had a very successful run of the Summer Night Lights. Did we have our last one this week, or are we having our last one this Friday will be our very last Summer Night Lights program out in Rich Grove. We've exceeded the numbers from last year, so a very successful program countywide. That's all I have.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Worthley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we did not have any last week, but the Monday prior to that, on the 5th, you and I and probation chief and others met out at the Traver Cemetery. This was in response to a matter which we'll be taking up a little later on in our grand jury report, to take a look at our Potter's Field out there. There's the historic Traver Cemetery portion of the property, and there's the Potter's Field portion of the property. And I thought it was very worthwhile for us going out there, and I will have more comments to make when we talk about our response to the grand jury report. But essentially, this piece of property is being maintained, but in a very low-profile way. Basically, the weeds or grass are being kept mowed down, and the fencing is appropriate as far as keeping people out and animals out that should not be in there. So anyway, I'll reserve the rest of my comments for it, but I'm glad we went out there and actually had the chance to take a look at it, because there's just no substitute for being on the site and taking a look at it. The other thing was, I had a conversation the other day with Neil Pilligard. There's I haven't seen much about way in publicity, but there's an event happening in Fresno called Valley First, which are sort of focusing on some of the historic events, inventions, people that were first discovered or first invented here in the San Joaquin Valley, as I understand it. and they are quite interested in some of our artifacts from our museum, one of which is the famous Visalia saddle, which is the forerunner of the modern working saddle with which we're familiar today, was invented in Visalia, I believe about 1852 or something like that. Anyway, that's one of the items they want to have in Fresno, and so we're going to be working closely with them to make sure that that happens. And I hope that when that event occurs, we'll have a little bit more publicity about it and perhaps be invited to attend. One final thought was I would like for the board, if we can, to try to schedule a sort of a sightseeing, fact-finding mission up at the State Home Forest Project. We have not been up there for many, many years. It's a good example of how managed forests can be used to produce timber, produce forage, produce water, produce recreational opportunities, and it's really very far afield from what we're doing today in our national forests, national parks, where our failure to do any kind of work to protect and preserve this very valuable assets is really rearing itself and preparing us for some catastrophic fires. Right now we have a fire that's up above Huntington that has burnt over 21,000 acres, very steep countryside, but this is just the beginning. We're going to have much larger fires in our national lands here in the future because we're not managing them properly. And so I would really I think it'd be worthwhile for us to go up there because I think, again, there's no substitute for actually seeing on the ground what can be done. And I think we would become better advocates in Sacramento and Washington when we do that. So that's my comments for this morning.
All right. Supervisor Ennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And tagging on to that, the ability to have more habitat for the wildlife. I mean, you look at these managed forests and the wildlife flourishes, and where they're not managed, it's dense and the canopy covers everything, you get no life.
I suspect, interject real quickly here, that the yellow-legged frog in this area that's burnt 21,000 acres, I would suspect they have been extirpated from that area.
I would certainly agree with that.
In other words, they've been cooked.
Well, Saturday we had a step-up event. It was called the Back to School event up at the Tule Indian Reservation, and Under Sheriff Boudreaux and Captain Skiles and a whole group of our county sheriff's department was up there. They had the Bearcat, I guess that's what they call that armored vehicle. They had the bomb squad up there with all of our robotics. They had the snowmobiles and the ATVs they used for search and rescue. Also, the health department had their mobile clinic up there, which was great to see. So we had a lot of resources up there. It was a good turnout, and I think was a very good event. This coming Thursday, we'll be having our kind of our town hall meeting in the Upper Tule area at Camp Nelson Fire Station, and that brings in people from Sequoia Crest, Alpine, Ponderosa, Pierpoint, Camp Nelson, all those mountain areas that are serviced by the CHP, Caltrans, Cal Fire, the Forest Service, County Roads, and County Fire. Those people will all be present. We always have a pretty good turnout, and if anybody has any complaints or just wants to know what's going on and what's in the future, we pretty well bring them up to speed at that meeting. Thursday night, that same day, we'll be having the meeting on the health fees there at City Hall in Porterville. I'll be attending that meeting too. I think it starts at 6 o'clock. So that'll be a pretty busy day. I want to congratulate Rockford School on being picked one of the top grammar schools in the area for their grades and bringing their students up. They were up 3 or 4% over everybody else. And right now we're in the midst of a Safe Routes to School program out there where we're putting in the radar signs so that when you come down through there, you'll tell how fast you're going, and a lot of people speed on that street. We're also going to be putting a signal light in at Olive and 208. That's a busy intersection. And the reason that Rockford School is so, Rockford School, 60% of the kids that go to Rockford School are from out of the area. So in other words, they're either bused in there or they're brought in by vehicle. So that's why it's so important to have these safe routes to school. There's a lot of cars in the morning, a lot of cars in the afternoon. So congratulations to Rockford School for that. So that's about all I have. Thank you.
Sure.
Excuse me, one thing I
Another
forgot.
bite at the apple?
Well, this was something that came up last week at our LAFCO meeting. There had been a report that had come down about how, in some respects, there was a thought that perhaps Tulare County was not keeping up with the Joneses in terms of protection of agricultural properties. And that had led us to kind of take a look at the various mechanisms that we now have in place of protecting agricultural property, which are many. Also, I had requested, and a study was conducted, we have often been bombarded with the idea that we're losing agricultural property primarily to urban encroachment. So cities grow, they build over prime farm property, and once the property is out of production, it's lost forever, on and on. Our staff went back and, with the benefit of GIS systems, was able to determine that since 1990 until 2013, we have actually lost more agricultural property to the acquisitions by the federal government and the state government than we have lost to city encroachment. And I think this is really quite significant in terms of finding. I think anecdotally I've always wondered about that. But to really see what's happening is that who's talking about this? Everybody's concerned about farms taking up agricultural property. Who's talking about the government continuing to buy properties and acquire properties? And, of course, every time it's a zero-sum game. Every acre that comes out of private production, it goes into public ownership. We lose the benefit of the taxes on that property. We lose the ability to manage that property, to make it productive and more valuable from a tax standpoint. I think this is a major issue. It is, I think, a significant finding for Tulare County. We're encouraging this information to go out to other LAFCOs. We think similar studies should be done statewide because we really need to broaden this discussion. Loss of agricultural property to public ownership is something which needs to be brought into the conversation of the public, and right now it's just being left on the back burners.
Okay, thank you very much, Supervisor. A couple things I wanted to go over were a couple of upcoming events in and around the Tulare area. Tonight there's going to be an event celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Mid-Valley Cotton Gin. I think that'll be a nice evening, and congratulations to them for 75 years in existence, and that's a testament to Tulare County agriculture that's been able to survive and change with the times, and cotton's now becoming productive and profitable again. And that's at 6:30 tonight at the Heritage Complex in Tulare. And then also next Saturday at 6 p.m. Is the Summer Jubilee event that benefits the Tulare Hospital. That event will take place at the residence of Dr. Kumar. Should be a great event and is always well attended with local vendors and restaurants offering food to all the attendees. So that's another great event. That concludes Board of Supervisors matters for today. We will now take up the consent calendar very quickly. We will pull item number 11 off of the calendar to come back at a later date. We will also pull item 13 for separate discussion. And then item 31 will also be pulled for separate discussion and action. So those items are off calendar. The chair will entertain a motion on the balance.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Supervisor Worthley. We have a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously for the balance of the consent calendar. We will now move on to item number 13, and we will discuss that item. That is the Low-Income Health Program.
Jason Britt, Director of Public Health. Before you today is a request to place an enrollment cap on our Low-Income Health Program, or also known as Tulare Care. As you recall, this is a program we brought to the board on the 26th of February, and we implemented it on March 25th. And as of yesterday, we have 3,873 individuals enrolled into this program, which leads us to request the cap because the process for the cap and enrollment at the state level is that it's based on projected expenditures. And so we have to look at our claims data that we've had for the last 4 months and project what our claims might be out into the future. So after discussing this with our Tulare Care Steering Committee on June 20th and doing financial projections, we came to the conclusion that we would ask the board to support a cap for this program in order to keep the program from spending more than what is budgeted. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments, Supervisor Cox?
What would that cap be?
The way the cap is designed is we sent our letter in on July 24th. The state has a 30 business day window to answer, and along with submitting our resolution from today. And on whatever day the state approves our cap, how many ever people we have enrolled is the number of capped enrollees. We project we'll be at about 4,300 by the time we get our approval from the state, because we believe they'll take the full 30 business days to send the approval.
So really a very successful program in terms of enrollment to enroll probably 4,300 individuals in a period since February of 2013, correct?
We've actually started enrollment on March 25th. So between March 25th and August 12th, we've enrolled 3,800 people, or almost 775 people a month. So it's been pretty busy, and it's and the other piece to that is the other reason we're asking for a cap is because out of those 3,800 people, we're only seeing about a 30% utilization rate. So if the other 70% start utilizing, we're going to have budget issues. So we cap the enrollment now, and we'll just let them use it till December, when they'll transition to the Medi-Cal expansion in January.
And this is the bridge to January 1, 2014, so this has been a good trial run for your staff then.
That's correct. This has been a great trial run for not only for our staff, but I think for our partners who, the clinics and the hospitals who've come to the table each month, who've taken care of these patients. I think it's helped them think about care coordination, how we're going to look at things when the Affordable Care Act is implemented. So yes, it's been a great trial run for the eligibility staff, who have to enroll a great number of people into Medi-Cal coming in January, but I think it's been also a great trial run for our health partners to think about their systems as well.
All right, so kudos to the health systems and also to your staff for doing a great job. Thank you, Jason. With that, the chair will entertain a motion on this item.
Second.
Set the cap. We have a motion by Supervisor Ennis, a second by Supervisor Cox. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, next item that we will now take up is item number 31 that's been requested for separate action.
Mr. Chair, I don't really need a report, just wanted to vote separately on this.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item number 31.
Motion approved.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley.
Second.
A second by Supervisor Ishida. Please vote. Motion passes 4-1, with Supervisor Cox voting against. Item passes. We will now move on to our timed portion of our meeting agenda. Take up item number 4, which is a public hearing, a request from the Resource Management Agency to approve the categorical exemption. And you can finish the title, Mike, because I think I'll read your whole agenda item or your whole presentation if I finish.
Remember, 30 seconds or less. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, County Administrative Officer, Council, Mike Spada, RMA Planning. The matter before you briefly today is to hold a public hearing and to approve the requested action regarding tentative map 827, previously approved by the Planning Commission in June of this year. The location of the subject property is on the northwest corner of Avenue 320 and Road 138, north of Visalia. The proposed tentative map is 2 parcels. Lot 1, 5.26 acres. The other lot, 38.48 acres. The reason why this is a tentative map, which requires more than 4 lots, is that there have been prior successive subdivisions by the same owner or related parties, in which case we have to count the prior lots, which puts it into the tentative map stage rather than the parcel map stage. It should be noted that no opposition was filed at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved the map unanimously, and we would recommend approval in the sense that the categorical exemption for minor alteration of land should be approved, conditionally approve the map, and direct that the environmental assessment officer file the appropriate exemption with the. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions from board members? All right, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this item? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and I will bring it back to the board for discussion and action.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item number 5 on our agenda, and that's a public hearing, a request from the Resource Management Agency to hold a public hearing in accordance with the Streets and Highways Code, Section 100.22, and receive public testimony. And Ben, you can finish.
Good morning, Chairman and Supervisors. My name is Ben Ruiz. I'm an engineer with the Resource Management Agency's Engineering Design Division. And this is a public hearing as part of the approval process for a freeway agreement for the Betty Drive Interchange project. I just have a few slides. I'll go over the general scope of the project, the county's involvement in this project, and a slide on schedule and costs. This figure here shows the some line work for the overall scope of the project. Essentially, the existing Betty Drive interchange will be completely reconstructed to meet current state standards for state highways. The project is located just north of the existing State Route 198 and State Route 99 grade separation, which is located here. The project starts approximately at about Avenue 304 and extends north of the existing Betty Drive interchange. What the project will do is it will close the existing Avenue 304 on-ramps and off-ramps. This is to meet current standards for spacing of on-ramps and off-ramps and interchanges. It will realign the existing off-ramps and on-ramps at Betty Drive. It will completely reconstruct the existing overcrossing structure to meet current standards for clearance over State Route 99. And there will be a realignment of Road 64 slightly to the west. That's to accommodate the new location of this intersection. This intersection was governed by, again, spacing requirements from the new proposed off-ramp to the next adjacent intersection. So again, like the bold black line work represents the new configuration of the roadways and as well as the interchange.
If I can, Mr. Chair, while can you put that slide back up, Ben?
Sure.
I know there were some concerns with the residents out there. Supervisor Worthley has worked with some of those folks. Is this the final?
Yes, this is what's been approved and what Caltrans is going to move forward with.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just comment real quickly, this has been a very hot topic among the property owners in that area, business owners. And I think the map is, again, is worth 1,000 words, because you look at this is a very difficult intersection to construct and not impact local businesses. If you look at that curvature, it's not straight, it's curved. There's a railroad track on the north. There is a pedestrian overcrossing on the south. They're going to be losing their 2 hook ramps that are access into the community. There's essentially will be one way into this community now after this is completed. And so we have tried to work with Caltrans and with the business owners to try to find a way to try to minimize the impact of businesses. And we're still working on that. Part of that process is to look at doing some things internally into the city, the community of Goshen, where we will improve some of the roadways internally so that we can improve the ability of traffic to maneuver within the community since they are losing these hook ramps, and we're trying to get more of the traffic away from the public school. But there will be an impact to businesses here, and we have had meetings with Caltrans specifically to try to address these matters. The bottom line is that in today's standard of construction and safety, public safety and so forth, there is really no way to avoid impacting these businesses. Some are going to be, out of business because of the location of the new crossing. But in most cases, the business will still survive. It's just that the access is going to be very different. Right now, it's just off the freeway and immediately onto these facilities. That will no longer be the case. And I appreciate the work of TCAG staff. We've worked very hard with Caltrans, and Caltrans is, they've listened to us, but at the end of the day, it is their call. They're the ones who determine how this is going to be done because it's the 99, it's a state highway system, and they're involved in that process and control it. But I just wanted to let the folks know that that's what the history has been here.
Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
So this next slide just kind of outlines the role that the county has versus what Caltrans has. Some of these bullets I just took from a cooperative agreement that we'll be entering with Caltrans, which will come before your board on September 17th. At the same time, we'll also bring another agreement with the Tulare County Transportation Authority, which will provide funding for the right-of-way portion of this project. Essentially, the county is going to fund approximately 50% of the right-of-way process or the phase through Measure R funds. There will be about 50% in state funds for the right-of-way portion, but Caltrans will be the implementing agency. They'll prepare the design, the plan, specs, and estimate to go out to construction. They'll acquire the right-of-way and take the project to construction. Caltrans was also the lead agency for the environmental document, which was approved approximately a year ago. Just kind of a summary of the costs moving forward. Like I mentioned, the state's going to fund approximately 50% of the right-of-way phase, about $6.5 million. Local Measure R funds will be used as well for the right-of-way at about $6.6 million. Right-of-way is expected, the acquisition of right-of-way is expected to begin this fall. Caltrans can't begin the right-of-way process until this freeway agreement is approved and executed between the state and the county. And right-of-way is expected to be complete in the winter of 2015. Construction, there's an estimate of about $5 million that will be provided by the state to do the construction administration. Local Measure R funds in the amount of about $30 million will be used for the actual construction, which is expected to begin sometime in the 2015-16 fiscal year. Kind of an overview. Streets and Highways Code Section 100.2 allows Caltrans to enter into agreements with public agencies to close a county highway or road near its intersection. So that's that requirement is why we're here today. This freeway agreement is required by Highway Code Section 100.2. Caltrans can't begin acquiring the right-of-way until this agreement is approved and executed. And Highway Code Section 100.22 requires that the county hold a public hearing for approval of this agreement. And so with that, if there's any questions, I may be able to answer.
Any questions from board members? Okay. This is a public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing and see if there's anyone here wishing to comment to this item. Anyone wishing to comment? Okay. At this time, I'll close the public hearing and I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and action.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Cox. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Ben. Okay, we will now move on to item number 6. That is a public hearing. It is a request from the Resource Management Agency to consider the request for partial cancellation of land conservation contract. Mike?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Very quickly, the matter before you is a proposed partial cancellation of agriculturally contracted land under the Williamson Act. The applicant is Steve and Joanne Martin. The location is near Road 46 and Avenue 46 in the Alpar area. The proposed action before you grows out of a special use permit that was approved by the Planning Commission in July of this year with regard to a 160-acre solar project. Because as part of that resolution, the Williamson Act contracted area that was affected, your board needs to approve a partial cancellation. Should be noted that no opposition was filed by any party with regard to this. Even the Department of Conservation was supportive, and their comments were responded to in the record. There are 2 key findings that need to be made. Number 1, whether the proposed cancellation is in the public interest, and the record amply supports that in light of the renewable energy component of this project, clearly the public interest is supported there. Secondly, is there a technical finding? In essence, this finding boils down to whether there is other non-contracted land, non-Williamson Act land that is both available and suitable. Based upon careful findings and based upon the characteristics of this project, the record supports that this finding can be made as well. Therefore, we would respectfully suggest that you hold the public hearing and then approve the CEQA-related findings and the partial cancellation findings that are set forth in your record. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from board members? All All right, seeing none, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak. Hi, Moira. Please state your name and an address for the record.
Hi, Moira Garrity, Burlingame, California, 1252 Drake Avenue. I'm here as the representative of the solar project. The landowner and I are here today in support of the staff's recommendations for approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak to this item? Steve, you're going to drive all the way from Alpine. You don't want to say anything? I'm just teasing. I know Moira spoke already. Thank you. Okay. If there is no further public comment, I will close the public hearing, and I will bring it back to the board for discussion and action. Supervisor Worthley?
Well, I know we say this every time, but I think we need to continue to say it, and that is that my only objection is that the fact the cancellation fee of $33,750 we paid to the state of California. And in the days of yore, when the state used to subvent the Wayne Smack contracts and provide the county with up to $3.5 million a year of subvention, the idea that cancellation fees would go to the state of California made sense. Ever since it's been eliminated, to me, there's no justification for the state receiving these funds. It is the county that takes the loss of tax revenue, school districts, special districts, that because of the Williams Mac contract benefit to the farmers, which we support. There's a less tax obligation. We are the ones that suffer that loss. An opportunity to recover some of that loss would be through these cancellation fees, but instead it goes to the state of California, who does nothing to receive it. So I'm supportive of this project and supportive of the cancellation, but it is payment under duress, if you will.
Is that a long-winded motion?
It's a motion.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley and a short-winded second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for your attendance and consideration of that matter. We will now move to the untimed portion of our meeting agenda, and we will take up item number 33. It's a request from the Treasurer Tax Collector to approve a resolution making Government Code Section 53684 local agencies excess funds investment by county treasurer operative in the county of Tulare. This item is set for closed session, and at this time we will adjourn to closed session and consider the legal issues surrounding this item, and then we will return to move forward with some direction and action on this item. We will be back very shortly. Thank you.
Isn't a given, so yeah. I assume it was on purpose.
I didn't bring it up.
Okay? That's fine. I figured she was going to be sort of shadowing me a little bit.
Okay, the board is now back in open session. Thank you for being patient during our closed session recess. We will now take up item 33 and turn it over to Ms. Woodard.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Rousseau, Ms. Bales-Lang, Michelle. I'm Rita Woodard. I'm the Tulare County Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Registrar of Voters, and my office is at the courthouse down the street. We're here today to ask the board to approve a resolution making Government Code Section 53684 operative in Tulare County. We also ask that you approve a contract template for investments of excess funds by local agencies that are outside the county. that we also would recommend that any agencies inside the county not require this agreement, that there's a government code that the treasurer can verbally say yes or no to them. We also would ask that you give the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector authority to enter into contracts at my discretion following the county's current investment policy, and then I'm asking that that be for agencies within the county, and that any agencies outside the county come to the board with a formal agreement, and the board approve those agreements.
Okay, any questions or comments from board members?
Mr. Chairman, I think
Yes, sir.
I will be glad to make the motion. I think the idea would be the three items that are listed, which was to approve the resolution in making Government Code Section 53684 operative in the County of Tulare, approve the template, and give authority to the treasurer, auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector to enter into these contracts only to those agencies that are outside of the County of Tulare. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item is item number 34. It's a request from the Treasurer Tax Collector to approve an agreement with the City of Hanford for the voluntary deposit of excess funds into the Tulare County Treasury pool. Rita?
Yes, this item is brought to you because we were approached by the City of Hanford several months ago asking if they could place some excess money into our treasury pool. And we didn't solicit them. They just came to us because they had gone to Kings County, and Kings County said that they didn't want any extra work. We have a treasury pool where we have advisors contracted. PFM was here this morning. They're one of our advisors, and Chandler is another advisor we have, and they have each about a third of our pool. We told Hanford, oh, sure, if you want to do that, you go look at the rules and make sure it's legal, because we don't want to have to pay for anything on that line. And they came back and said, well, yeah, our attorney thinks it's legal. And then our counsel looked at it and said, if that government code section you just made operative was made operative, well, then, yes, there could be a template, and possibly the board would want to do that. There are some positive things for them coming in. They would be in for 5 years, and the money wouldn't come and go. And as you heard this morning with PFM's presentation, the longer out you can go with investments, the higher the yield. And a 5-year investment would get pretty good yield and would raise the yield for the whole county pool, for everybody in it. We would also have someone else to spread our costs to. So for us, it's a win situation because the whole pool would gain, and for the city of Hanford, they would gain because they would get a higher rate than they're getting now, and mostly they're going with LAIF, which is at 0.40 right now, and we are above 1 net. And they wouldn't have to have someone on staff to do investments because they know we follow the rules that the state has set out for our investment policy and things, which is they wouldn't have to worry about those kind of things. They know what we're doing. So it's a win-win situation. Our recommendation is that you do approve this contract based on the template that you just approved with the City of Hanford.
Great. Any questions or comments from board members? You answered my question about what are the positives of taking this action, and so I'm glad that there are positives to the county and our whole pool. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion from Supervisor Cox, second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Rita. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item number 35. That is
I
a
would
request.
also like to thank council for their work on this. They did quite a bit. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Rita. We'll move on to item number 35. That's a request from the County Administrative Office to consider, modify as needed, and approve the responses to the Tulare County Grand Jury 2012-2013 final report.
Good morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Item 35 on today's agenda includes 3 draft responses to the 2012-13 Grand Jury. These responses require your review and approval. I have prepared a summary of each of the 3 draft responses that I will go through at this time. Please feel free to interject any questions you see fit as I go along. The first report contains 2 findings and 3 recommendations regarding financial aspects of Tulare County's special districts. The draft response finds agreement with the two findings. Regarding the recommendations will not be implemented because the Board of Supervisors does not have authority or jurisdiction over special districts, and that is what the draft response states. The next report that I want to talk about is regarding potholes. That includes 4 findings and 3 recommendations. The draft response finds disagreement or partial disagreement with the 4 findings. Regarding the recommendations, the draft response states the recommendations have already been implemented. Last but not least, the last report that I want to cover is in regards to the indigent burial program in Tulare County. And as Supervisor Worthley was discussing earlier in the meeting, we did go out to the site last week with Chairman Vanderpool and the Probation Chief Meyer, John Hess, and myself, and Neil Pilligards from Parks. And they're all here today in case there's any questions from the board. The draft response partially agrees with the first finding and agrees with the second finding. Regarding the recommendations, Recommendation 1 will be implemented in the future. Recommendation 2 will not be implemented because it is not warranted. And Recommendation 3 will be implemented in the future. Now that you have received an overview of the 3 draft responses, it is requested that you approve all of the responses and authorize the chairman to sign each of them.
Okay, board, do we have any discussion related to these items?
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
Worthley?
my comments are related to the finding number 2, that the cemetery appears to be nothing more than an unkempt dirt lot with a damaged fence and dogs running loose. The lack of maintained landscape implies a lack of caring and or respect to family and friends who have lost a loved one. I have trouble with the idea that we simply agree with that finding. One is that it is, while I will certainly understand, I mean, it's quite clear as we were out there that there is not, I mean, it is a limited amount of control, of being kept up, but it is being mowed down. It is, the fence was not apparently damaged. When we were there, we did not see that, and apparently my understanding was after this was reported and the staff went out and looked at it, they did not find that the fence was damaged. And then also the implication that the lack of caring and so forth. And I remind that those are opinions, they're not facts. And so I would agree that one could argue that this is not a maintained landscape site. There's no question about that. But that's all I think I really agree with. And apparently a few years ago, this was this really was a bigger problem. The weeds and so forth were not being mowed down, and they were just, it was really bad. So that's my big comment. The other one was that we had a long conversation out there together. We talked with Neil Pilligard, and landscaping is a difficult matter because it implies normally that you're planting something, you're going to irrigate something, you're going to maintain something. We have no well out there. It requires costs to maintain that sort of thing. We've talked about doing some things out there, and the probation chief is very open to the idea of doing some things out there which would be more along the lines of improving the actual burial sites, perhaps with permanent markers that would be flush with the ground, with perhaps putting in some shade structures that would be permanent type of things. Of course, there's maintenance involved with those, but it's not like going out there and having to mow lawns and that sort of thing, because really we don't have the money and funds to do that sort of thing. So we are looking at, I'm not sure what landscaping is really the term, because I think there's an implication when we talk about landscaping that we're maybe go out there and we're going to plant turf out there, and we're going to have sprinkler systems in and watering and mowing and that sort of thing. I don't think that's the direction that we want to go. But certainly there are things that we can do to improve the appearance out there, the experience of people coming out there, short of landscaping. So those are my comments.
I've got a couple of comments, too, that I want to add. First of all, did you see the dog that was running around out there?
But not inside.
I know. That's what I was going to say. There was a dog that we found on the street when we were out there, and he ran up to us, but he wasn't inside the fence. The fence did keep him out. But And the second thing that I would request is that the probation department, as well as Neil and Parks and some of the other interested parties or interested departments would come back in a few weeks or at an appropriate date in the near future with some sort of plan as to what we are going to do with this facility, because I think there's some real opportunities for us there to improve it. And I had discussed that with the chief, and she thought that would be very appropriate. So that could be an action item for the board to adopt a formal plan in the near future. And that would be the request that I would make specifically related to the indigent burial program. Any other comments or questions from board members?
No, other than if you had an area like that, say you kept it clean of weeds and everything, made sure it was raked and looked nice, you can make things look pretty good without grass and stuff. It doesn't have to have grass. So it just needs to look like it's kept.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you, Supervisor. Okay. Any other further questions or comments? Comments or questions from members of the public?
Are we going to modify the response to finding number 2 then that the board partially agrees?
I would agree with that modification.
And what we agree with is that is not a maintained landscaped facility.
So, Jed, is that noted?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Well, with that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve these items.
For approval.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ennis, a second by Supervisor Ishida. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We are now going to move on to item number 36, which is a request from the Resource Management Agency to approve the Business Opportunities Work Program, approve the Tourism Work Program, and approve the Film Commission Work Program. Mr. Is it Beard or is it Mr. Spada that's speaking? I'm not sure.
Beard and beardless.
Okay, all right.
If I may, Mr.
I was just checking.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm just going to provide a very brief introduction to the very able presentation that will be provided today by Mike Washam and Eric Coyne. The matter before you is to consider an overview of work programs for this fiscal year's Economic Development Office. However, I did want to call out to your attention that in the introductory part of this agenda item, there is a very well-defined and precise 6-part strategy. This strategy guides the activities of the office, and as demonstrated in the presentation today, you will see how they are in alignment. 3 of the key points are that local serving businesses should be created, expanded, and retained, and exporting businesses should be recruited through target marketing, which also includes segmentation and positioning. The final point is that well-paying jobs should be identified, retained, and increased. And again, this presentation will demonstrate how the activities of this office are in keeping with those specific strategies. Having said that, I do want to acknowledge and thank Mike Washam and Eric Coyne for their outstanding work since the office has really taken off about a year and a half ago. And having said that, I want to thank your board, the County Administrative Officer, and the RMA Director for the backing and the support necessary to allow these activities to occur. With that, thank you.
Mike Washam, Economic Development Manager. Good morning, Supervisors and Chairman and Jean and Kathleen. Today, I'm here to bring forward our work program for the office and really give an update of and tell the story of what we're doing in the unincorporated areas for business opportunities as well as film and tourism. As you know, part of our program includes the management of our utility scale solar facilities throughout the county. This last, it's been a month and a half ago, that Atwell Island had a ribbon cutting ceremony, and I'd like to go to a quick clip on that.
You didn't video the road on the way out there, did you, though, Mike?
Hold on one second. We're gonna backstep. There's a technical problem here. Okay,
southern portion of Tulare County near Alpaugh, attending the grand opening ceremony for Samsung's Atwell Island solar facility. This is the first utility-scale solar project to go live in Tulare County, the first of 19 projects permitted during the past 2 years. The Tulare County Economic Development Office has been working closely with Swinnerton Renewable Energy to bring this renewable energy facility online. Tulare County has been targeted by many developers of large-scale solar projects because of our progressive policies for rapid permitting, excellent location for sun exposure throughout most of the year, and available property that is accessible to power transmission lines. The Atwell Island location was chosen by Samsung for development because it is adjacent to a 115 kilovolt transmission line owned by PG&E that runs between PG&E Smyrna and Alpaugh substations. The Atwell Island solar project consists of 182,000 solar panel modules capable of generating 20 megawatt. Construction is now complete, and Atwell Island solar project is already producing power. The 20 megawatt plant will produce the equivalent of 100% of the annual electrical usage of 5,000 homes. This represents a reduction in CO2 emissions equal to taking 1,500 cars off the highway in Tulare County for 30 years. Tulare County is committed to promoting renewable energy projects.
So, thus far, the county has approved 20 projects, including 20 megawatt that you approved the cancellation of the Williams Act this morning, for the total of 295 megawatts. Doesn't mean all of them will be built. Some might not because of interconnection problems, but currently there's 3 projects for 90 megawatts that are actually online now. 5 projects are under construction for 53 megawatts. During this construction phase, over the last about 14 months thus far, over 600 jobs have been created. We've been working closely with, partnering with Proteus. They have a solar workforce pathway program. They've provided over 500 jobs for their trainees. This has resulted in over $183,000 in building permits for the county, with a total construction value of over $79 million thus far through those building permits. I'd like to say the 5 projects that are currently going is IMOTA is the company that's doing that, and we recently saw in the Fresno Business Journal that they're the #1 commercial development in all of the Central Valley are their 5 projects as far as the evaluation of their projects. Now, we don't only do solar, we're also looking at other business opportunities throughout the unincorporated areas, and we really like to look at opportunities to repurpose vacant buildings in the ag land and other communities. So I'm just going to pull out 3 examples that have happened in the last year. Ferry Farms is a juicing facility that was working out of Wood Lake. They lost their lease. They're doing some improvements, so they were looking for a site. We were able to get them into the old Elderwood Market that had been burned and been vacant for a number of years. So now we've got this productive company working out in there, and we were able to do that. And it saved 9 jobs. If they were having a difficulty time to find another location, and we were able to streamline the permitting to get them in there. Another company is Green Tech, which provides agricultural netting and screening material. They had lost their lease, and they were looking for a spot to find. We worked with them and found an old packing house in Sultana and moved them into that in an expedited manner. And that was really critical because of the materials that they sell. At the time that they were trying to do this was the same time the Asian citrus psyllid was coming up, and their products are sold to the growers and whatnot. So it's very critical to keep their operations going and get it expedited. So that's one more example. Another is an old veterinarian clinic in a county island on Shirk that had been vacant for a number of years. We were able to get a power plant produce. Their trade name's the Grape Guys. They're a sales and marketing company for produce, especially on grapes. Be able to get them located into that facility. Company expansions. The reason that Green Tech lost their lease in Goshen and moved to Sultana was because of a great expansion. Kuya Container bought out the building that they were subleasing a portion of and created a new container and packaging manufacturer, over 100 jobs. And they're also moving their administrative staff and offices from Visalia out to their plant now in Goshen. Also, Ventura Coastal, the juicing facility, they have a plant in Tipton as well as north of Visalia. They've done some major improvements over the last few months, and I've got another quick little click on this.
Ventura Coastal processes the majority of the orange and lemon juice produced in California at 2 plants located in Tulare County. The Tulare County Economic Development Office has assisted Ventura Coastal with significant plant expansions in both its Visalia and Tipton plants. The Tipton plant expanded its juice holding capacity from 2 to 9 tanks within the last year.
Well, welcome to Ventura Coastal Tipton Division. Here to take a look at the investment we just made in new silos for our not-from-concentrate orange juice business and our lemonade business. Now, about 14 months ago, we acquired the operational responsibility here for the Sunkist plant in Tipton, and we've spent the last year rationalizing between the 2 plants which fruit runs best in which location and making the appropriate investments. And these silos you saw going up today are an example of that and our commitment to the Tipton plant.
How is it dealing with the county these days?
Well, I tell you, it's been interesting. I've dealt with building factories and expanding factories in Europe and in Florida and California. And lately, I would have to say, since the joint venture started, the environment here has been remarkable. Friendly, helpful, making sure that when we came to the table with a project, we knew what we needed to bring to you. Your team has been extremely helpful every step of the way. We love it.
Another business I'd just like to highlight is it's a small business that was a startup in Pixley. It's a pomegranate facility, up to maybe 20 jobs, and they bought out another existing building and they refabbed it to do this. But what's unique about this one is this is the first company that made its initial contact to us off of our website, and we've brought them all the way through the permitting process, kind of held their hand through the environmental division to get their proper certificates and requirements for food handling. We even helped design a logo a little bit when he was putting logos together for his packaging. We had input on that, so we kind of helped them. That's what this is like, our little infant baby that was the first one that came through all the way from website to final permitting. Another commercial development that I like to highlight, we recently had the groundbreaking for the White River Plaza in Early Mart, which is a fantastic project. It's a 7-acre retail commercial development located at 99 and Avenue 56. Full build-out, it'll accommodate 12 new businesses and up to 120 jobs. So this is a fantastic project. We've been working closely with the developer, and we're going forward. 2 of the projects are in building permit stage. The General Dollar and the AutoZone, they should be ribbon cutting before the end of the year, so they should both be open up before the end of this year. We've also assisted with some other national chains. Family Dollar's gone in Ivanhoe, they're constructing Terabella, Cutler Rossi, a Subway and a Pizza Hut in Tipton, and an A&PM market. This is just a touch of what we've been doing this last year. But beyond that, we've had some economic studies and reports that one of them is for the Sequoia Field Constraints and Opportunities Study. It's nearing an administrative draft stage. We should have it to the board within about 60 days, sometime in October, probably a final report for presentation to your board. Another report that we commissioned is an ag value chain study with Fresno State, their Department of Economics. That what we wanted to do in this study is to really define the ag value chain, what might be lacking, where there's opportunities in the county to expand. We don't like to see our commodities go out of the area to be processed. We'd like to grasp more of that value chain within the county itself. That's what this study is going to identify, those opportunities, and then we'll go on from there. Also, Harmon Field, a grant has been awarded, and the study will be completed around the end of this year and presented to your board as well. Now, we also have outreach, and we've worked through the Speakers Bureau and other opportunities. So there's a list of some of the economic development opportunities we've had through Leadership Porterville and the Leadership Visalia, as well as community service organizations and whatnot throughout the last year. These are all things that we've been able to accomplish, or to at least speak and tell our story. We've done a number of marketing aspects, and I'm just going to highlight just a couple that we've done here. This was from the crop report. This was through a national magazine. Flyer that we use at our outreach, and this is through Discover Tulare. And this is one I really like to highlight. This is the World Ag Expo. We partnered with the Farm Bureau to create this 20-page newspaper we had over 17,000 copies of these printed. They're distributed through hotels from Madera down to Bakersfield, restaurants, and those areas. And what's great about this is that this is in the hands of the visitors before they got to the expo. The night before, while they're sitting in the hotel room or if they're eating breakfast, they have this in their hand before they get deluged with all the other paperwork and everybody else's flyers. So we have a standalone moment with them, so to speak. What's great about this is we had editorial content. We wrote about 5 articles in there, so we're looking to do that again next year. Also, we were able to partner with our Ag Commissioner to create the first full color crop reports, and then also through various other publications, including chamber reports and different items like that. And for our plan going forward, we're looking at an agricultural, industrial, commercial site inventory for the unincorporated communities to better respond to inquiries and prospects. A highway corridor community business assessment. This is in conjunction with our community plan updates along the 99 corridor. This will be associated with that. The industry sector market study is really the next step beyond our ag value chain. The ag value chain is identifying opportunities. This is going to be a very focused thing with specifics on companies and where we can really target our marketing and effort, so we're not wasting time going, missing the target. We're going to identify it and create a plan. Partner again with the Farm Bureau on our World Ag Expo program. We're going to complement next year the same as we did this year. Promote business-related infrastructure through our grants division and public and private partnerships. As you know, the RMA recently came to the board and reorged the planning division. Grants is now more closely aligned with the economic development. Promote green energy-efficient business development and coordinate with state and federal entities. Now, as part of the economic development office, not only is there business development, which is really focused on the unincorporated areas, we also have the Film Commission and Tourism, and Eric Coyne will do the rest of the presentation, and I will get it started with Norman Lowe.
South Valley Film Commission is taking to the red carpet for this Sunday's Academy Awards. Action News South Valley reporter Jessica Paris shows us how stars will get a taste of Tulare County and why many hope it'll lure filmmakers to the South Valley.
Tulare County has breathtaking views and beautiful scenery depicting the valley's rich agriculture. Eric Coyne from the Tulare County Film Commission hopes these views and some of Tulare County's proud local products are some of the main attractions for stars at this year's Academy Awards.
In Hollywood, it's all about appearances, and we've got the Sierras, the giant sequoias, and agriculture.
The Tulare County Film Commission has a coveted spot at a pre-Oscar party and is hoping to rub shoulders with many in the filmmaking industry.
Everybody that's a movie buff wants to see the movie stars, but really the ones we're focused on is the movie producers and the location managers.
You'll be able to network with the president of Screen Actors Guild Award to representatives from Disney.
Lindsay native Susie Picasso is the marketing and event coordinator for the Borgnine Group, which is putting on a star-studded red carpet pre-Oscar gifting suite on Saturday night. One free gift celebrities will get: Bari olive oil manufactured in Dinuba.
We get a chance to really shed some light on what we're doing here in the Central Valley. We really are the food basket of the world.
Celebrities will not only get a sample of olive oil, they'll also get some pistachios from Sudden Pistachio and Terabella, Essential Potion, which is a natural home spray made in Tulare, and an Oscar-shaped cookie made by Sweet Confections in Lindsay.
Good morning.
our whole film program, is based on collaboration. That's an important part of our outreach and our approach to the Economic Development Office activities, whether it's film, tourism, or business opportunities. The Film Commission, as you know, receives its support for projects not only from TCAG we get our funding. Our funding, with the board's help, was increased this year, our project funding, from $29,000 to $50,000. The county also contributes pretty much a like amount through the Resource Management Agency thank you, Jake, for staffing and office expenses and our other essentials. The $50,000 is purely for projects, one of which was the Oscars. A big approach was trying to be business friendly and cut through red tape. I won't bother to read the slide, but we've been working with the National Forest Service in particular to cut red tape and make our area more film friendly. This had an enormous payoff, especially last year. Early part of last year, we did 2 reality shows, a movie, and a commercial. This is the second of 2 Super Bowl commercials we filmed in Tulare County in our southern portion of the Forest Service properties. So we dealt with quite a few responses. I will tell you, last fiscal year, we responded to more than 450 inquiries that came through the Film Commission, the California State Film Commission. We receive a call almost every other day. And so we try to assess these as we go, see if it's an opportunity for our county, and then respond. And just this morning, I found out one of our films, All Cheerleaders Must Die, in Supervisor Ennis's district, was chosen of all the films we did, with some with far more notable stars than these young ladies. This film was chosen at 5:30 this morning to be featured at the Toronto Film Festival. The Toronto Film Festival is more important in terms of theatrical critique, whatever. They saw more value in this. Sundance is about the parties. But the Toronto Film Festival, this is a big deal. So Tulare County will be there. Not sure that they'll notice the background, but it's shot in beautiful Tulare County. This slide really kind of sums up our production for last year. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just in the projects listed, we had 47.5 film days. That represents, no offense to our chamber representatives, but these are not Chamber of Commerce numbers. These are industry numbers based on direct spending within the state of California, $1.5 million. Just one commercial was about $60,000 in local spend for lodging and dining. The cheerleaders, unfortunately, stayed in Kernville, but filmed in Tulare County. But maybe they'll come back for the next sequel, because one lived. Next year's goals. We will expand our partnership with our future filmmakers through Slick Rock and the County Office of Education. We will be working on our digital archive, and we were just recently invited to exhibit at the Emmys in a pre-party as well. So we'll be reaching out to representatives to go there. Set and Pistachio has been a tremendous supporter, and they're going to help us even more in the future. Tourism. Some of our tourism partners are here today. I see Tracy from the city of Tulare. I see Glenn from the Visay Chamber. And again, this is about collaboration. We run 2 tourism programs. One is at the Sequoia Regional Tourism Council, the Sequoia Tourism Council, where we put the majority of our funding. And this, the county's $15,000 direct investment turns into a $50,000 marketing pot. And this has allowed us to do things that we could not do on our own, even the county as one of the bigger partners. Our visitor's guide, just that visitor's guide that we print 50,000 copies of, has gotten us a tremendous amount of exposure. It also gets even more exposure because it's available online. The newspaper project you already heard about, that was a tremendous partnership. A lot of these things blend. Are they business opportunity? Are they film? Are they tourism? We try to really leverage these projects for maximum effect. So I'm not going to read every one because we don't have enough time. But with that, I will ask if there's any questions that Mike or I could respond to, in anticipation, we hope you'll have your support in the future.
All right. Are there any questions from board members? Questions or comments about this?
Chairman, just a comment. Since Mike and Eric are here, you guys have done a tremendous job. Hey, let's face it, this film commission and over the past 3 years has done more than we did all the future put together, all the past put together. But what an outstanding job you guys are doing. Really appreciate it, and I think my part of the county used a lot of it over there in District 5 and with Sutton Pistachio and everybody involved. So thank you so much for what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I know Mike would echo me. This is not just about us. It's about the community partnerships, the businesses that approach us, the chambers that take the call, the folks that let us film and step into their lives to promote our county. And I think we truly have the best jobs in the county. Thank you.
Okay. Alan, you want to make any comments? Supervisor Sheeta?
I also like to echo what Supervisor Ennis mentioned. I think it's been a great success since we've formed this group relationship, partnership. And I think one of the things, like in the Film Commission, for sure, is that we've been able to penetrate some of the red tape that it takes to get certain approvals from the different cities or the Park Service or the Forest Service. And I think that's a big issue because most of these guys think about a movie for about 4 years. Then all of a sudden a dollar drops in and they have to do it they should have done it 3 days ago. So they call us and they have all this lined up, but they didn't do any of the infrastructure work of where they're going to film it. And I think we've been able to short-circuit the process and been accommodating to this type of immediate action. That I think that's where we're going to get more and more word-of-mouth films produced in Tulare County. I would suggest also that we look at the treasures of Tulare County, maybe use part of that as sites, potential sites for the film crew. But overall, I'm very impressed with the progress we've made. As Supervisor Ennis said, I think we've seen more in the last couple of years than we had seen in many previous years. So congratulations and thank you for all your hard work.
Supervisor Wardley.
I'd like to speak primarily to the economic development part of this. It's really been quite noticeable, especially in my district, the repurposing, as you indicated, coming from Goshen to Sultana, the project up in Elderwood. I appreciate the fact that I see our folks taking the initiative to solicit people to come to Tulare County or to move their businesses or to expand here. And then the follow-through is equally important. And I think that's where we get a lot of kudos from people, and that is they're very impressed with our folks helping them every step of the way, lining it up, making sure they don't run into surprises and glitches. And the one gentleman spoke, he's operated all over the world, all over the country, and he's been very impressed with what we're doing here in Tulare County. And I attribute a lot of this to the two gentlemen that are here today, and I realize that they're speaking for a lot of other folks that work with them in this too, and also, but I think they're taking that kind of a little higher view, if you will, of something, and then working it all the way through is really paying off. And I know we have a lot of things still in the pipeline and things going forward, and I'm quite excited for Tulare County and what we're doing in economic development. So thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
I think even though you guys are doing a wonderful job, I think the direction came from this board several years ago as we sat back and looked at what the county was doing in regards to economic development, which was next to nothing. From one supervisor's opinion, as I came on board looking to see how we were involved, how we were out looking for helping people to expand their businesses or to grow their businesses or attract new businesses. And it appeared that to me that the county had little or no activity or involvement in those. So I think this board getting involved and committing the resources to make those positions available, make them viable, and to let them know what we wanted to see them do, which was to get involved and to be an active player. And so I'm excited to see the county as an active player in this realm, in all three areas we've talked about today. So I think the board does get a little bit of credit also for saying, you know what, this is important to us, this is important for our citizens, and I think we've positioned ourselves very well. As I see the economy starting to pick up, it'll do us well to be engaged, to be prepared, to have a system. You know, I look at Jake and Raper and Mike Spada there, also very important members of this team, because as they go out and find, you know, a developer or someone wanting to expand their business or create a new business, they need this team to act quickly to help them through the process, because there can be a lot of red tape. We all know there can be lots of red tape to making something like this happen, and it's a team effort. It's just not one person or two people. It's a team effort. So I think the team that's been created over there in that department is going to do very well, and we've positioned ourselves to do even better in the future. So I'm looking forward to what comes down. This is a great report. What I'd like to see 3, 4, 5 years from now is 5 times as much activity happening. Maybe we turn this department from a 2-man show into a 4 or 5-man show. So I'm excited about what's happened here, and looking towards the future. I think, again, I'll say it again, we've positioned ourselves well for success, and having dedicated these two individuals here is just the beginning, and they're part of a great team. So thank you for your hard work, all of you, and you know the part you've played in this, and including our CEO, Gene Russo, over here, who everybody knows a dollar does not move around in this county without his finger touching it some way.
All right, and I just wanted to echo the comments made by my colleagues and really thank the Tulare County Economic Development Team, because that is what you call yourselves, and you acknowledge the contributions by more than just the two of you who are kind of the face guys on this mission. But I really applaud your innovation, thinking outside the box, and really conveying to our constituents here in Tulare County and the Tulare County taxpayers, and anyone that's interested in coming to Tulare County to do business, that they're not going to find roadblocks in Tulare County's Resource Management Agency. They're going to find advocates that are going to make sure that the law is abided by, but we're certainly going to work the hardest that we can to move projects forward and to create job opportunities and growth for Tulare County's economy. So I applaud your efforts and congratulate you and the whole team for all that you've been doing. And with that concludes the board's comments, but I would like to open it to members of the public. If anyone would like to make comments, you are entitled to do so. Please do come forward, state your name and address for the record. And either microphone works.
Other microphone.
It's up to you.
I'm not sure you'd need a microphone to hear me, but Mr. Chairman, members of the board, appreciate the opportunity to come before you. My name is Glenn Morris. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce in Visalia. Also serve as the chair of the Sequoia Tourism Council, which is the collaborative group that has come together and includes your team on the tourism side. And I think the message that I wanted to reinforce today is what your staff has presented, which is this notion of collaboration and partnering. You know, the budgets that are available for these activities, quite honestly, are fairly small. We're not using a lot of dollars here to do these kinds of things, and so we've got to be incredibly smart in how we use those dollars. I think on the tourism side, we're doing a lot of that, and I want to acknowledge the staff for that. A couple of quick examples we're working on with the Film Commission on developing a Welcome to the County, Welcome to the Region video. We're going to post that on one website and then let all of the other constituent partners link to it. So rather than all of us creating something and spending the money to host it, we'll do it once and share it. We're going to do a similar kind of thing with taking some of the generic tourism materials and getting them translated into the languages of our most common international visitors. Again, we're going to do that once. We're going to pay to do that professionally. We'll have it done well. We'll post it on one website and let all the cities link to it. Those are the kinds of things that collaboration can bring to you. I guess if I have a word of caution for you, I think there's still some opportunity to do some more shaking out of eliminating duplication. between the services on the economic development side. I think a lot of what the cities have already done, what the EDC has done, some of the things that your folks are doing, I'm starting to see in the work plans some duplication of some things, some of the databases. Some of these things cost a lot of money, are very staff intensive to get built. And so I would just, I guess, put a caution out there that as we do things, let's make double sure that if we're spending very few dollars, we're not doing it twice. But what we really are doing are trying to figure out where are the missing pieces, which I think is what your board did a couple of years ago, was try to identify where were there opportunities that no one was addressing, and some of the rural development, certainly the solar projects, those kinds of things were missing. You've stepped in and filled those holes very well. Just would want to encourage us all as we continue to move down that path of collaboration that we spend some time early on talking about long-term strategies, long-term work projects, so that we don't end up coming to the table very excited about the same project that two of us have done in the back room. We'll just put that out there for you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I agree with your comments, Glenn, and just to add, there's never, I think, enough effort or too much effort put towards recruiting, development, and growth within the county, and progress. I think everyone can do that very well, and we need to identify the resources and make sure they're not being expended in duplicative ways, but we also need to make sure that we're having the entities that are best suited to carry the mission forward being the ones that are doing it, so they can do it the best. So thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak this morning related to this item? Okay, seeing no one, I will bring it to the board for action at this time.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Supervisor Worthley.
Second.
We have a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item number 37. It's a presentation given by the Resource Management Agency on the development of a complete streets policy for the unincorporated communities of Pixley, Goshen, and Traver.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Matthew Bullis, RMA Engineering. See that? All right. How's that? Very good. What I have before you today is the complete streets policy for unincorporated communities of Pixley, Goshen, and Traver. And basically, AB 1358 was approved in 2008, and it required, and that was the Complete Streets Act. It requires an updates to the circulation element of the general plan. When that general plan is updated, must provide for routine accommodation for all roadway users. And who is all roadway users? Not only the motorists out there, the traveling public, the bicyclists, people walking on the streets and the pathways, disabled community. So they want you to look at the complete package and incorporate all venues for that subject. The policy that we want to develop will concentrate on the communities mentioned, Traver, Pixley, and Goshen. And TCAG allocated $150,000 for this program. This was very gracious on them to push this money forward, and the general fund also provided a match of $17,205 for this effort. What are complete streets? Well, basically, complete streets are streets that better accommodate all users, as I mentioned before. Those folks that are walking and riding bikes, and travel ways for them to use all travel ways. And it also creates an integrated network of pathways so that we can all travel on. And we are doing that. I want to point out today on the consent calendar, item 29, we have a Traver pathway that's going to go down Merritt Drive from the school to Burke. That was one project. And recently we're starting to do two projects in Pixley along Main Street, transportation element. I was there yesterday. It hadn't started, but we've let the bid. Contractor's ready to go. And we're almost ready to come back with the Safe Routes to School project along Pixley that goes up to the school. And there are others in the other communities that we're working on. So what this plan does is it looks at the rest of the community and says, where's the pathways? Where do we want to go? Where does the community want to travel from what area to A to B? And how do we identify what's missing? We have a lot of sidewalks out there and pathways, but are we missing some in between? And it also fits the needs of the community. The community's input is what's important, what they want to see. So it creates a livable community by encouraging walking and bicycling for health in a main travel point. These are interesting facts that I received from, I got on the website from the National Complete Streets Coalition. 73% of residents feel they have no choice but to drive a car to get around and want more options. 39% of all trips are less than 3 miles long. 17% of all trips are less than 1 mile. And of those 17%, half are driven in a car. Every trip, if you think about it, starts and ends with walking. And more than 40% of all pedestrian deaths in 2007 and actually in 2008 occurred where no crosswalk was available for them. Just some interesting facts. So what does this program do? It's a scope of work. It's a series of, like I mentioned before, community meetings to identify the needs and priorities of the community. Then we conduct walkability audits in those areas. We walk every street, every pathway, every street that doesn't have a pathway. We identify what's there, what's not there, and try to find ways to install those. We review traffic analysis, see which roads are the heaviest traveled, and perhaps we can identify pathways on less traveled roads to keep people away from the motorists. We review policies that inhibit access by the disabled walking and bicycling. Is there policies within the county that inhibit this? And we identify problem areas, and we identify funding programs to fix these problem areas. Typical pedestrian pathway issues. I took a drive on my lunch the other day and took some pictures here, and we connect projects, but we might miss a little piece. So this is a picture on the left. This is, as I was driving along, this is a crosswalk. There's a school down the street, but there's no sidewalk between the crosswalk and the street and the school, maybe 100 feet, and the school children have to walk down off the side into the dirt. Across that same street, I noticed the parents parking, or those are the teachers parking, and there was no sidewalk forcing the kids to walk actually in the street because of the cars are there. So that's just an issue. I don't know how we address it, but there's an issue that I saw.
Can I interject something here?
Sure,
real quick?
certainly.
If you would go back to that.
Yes, sir.
Many moon ago, sitting on the Visalia City Council, we had our first meeting with the Visalia Unified School District, identified this exact same scenario where you have sidewalks with dirt. And our roads department, this will be a hint to roads department, at the end of the day when they ended up with, leftover materials, there were identified right-of-ways that were existing. They took those materials and laid them 20 and 30 feet at a time. And I think Mr. Brett Fussell must remember that conversation. And so it was done at relatively little or no cost, where when there was a little bit of asphalt left, it was taken and a sidewalk was created from, quite some distance on Houston Avenue all the way out to Golden West High School, where there were no sidewalks. And I think some of that is still in use today. So little or no cost solutions. If there's right-of-way there, if you have a quarter truck of stuff left at the end of the day, take it out and dump it there.
And a perfect example of establishing policies in which direction you want us to follow. So thank you for that. Okay. Another pictures left. We all know there's still missing wheelchair ramps at home all over. The RMA department has 4 students that recently graduated from Fresno State, and as part of our ADA transition plan for all the utilities, we had them walk and all 44 unincorporated communities in the last 6 months, and identified lots and lots of issues out there, pictures, identified it per ADA plans. They've looked at all the missing ramps, the existing ramps, and all the pathways. We have that data. We're going to incorporate that data into this plan. This is a picture of, as I mentioned on the left, no wheelchair ramp, and there was no wheelchair ramp across from it on the State Route 99 overpass. On the right side, we had sidewalk, but then the sidewalk stopped, and you can see lots of utilities that need to be pushed out of the way, a sidewalk to be added on this picture. On the left, there's a picture of a fence that might be in the right-of-way. I don't know for sure, but it's up to the curb line, and it forces the folks to go around the street, into the street, and so that might be an issue. On the right, there is some sidewalk areas that appears to be our county right-of-way, because We have sidewalk on one side, sidewalk on the other, but there was some landscaped areas instead of sidewalk in between. So those are just typical pictures we see. On the left, there was a development that might have occurred 20 years or so ago. It wasn't too old, but there was no sidewalk. Perhaps it wasn't required to be put in at that time, and now we're looking at pieces of sidewalks here. And on the right, there's a school parking. I noticed that the parking lot was there, but there was no sidewalk in front of the school, forcing the kids to go out in the street. So those are some of the programs. And basically, the Complete Street Policy wants to ensure that the entire right-of-way is planned, designed, constructed, operated, and maintained to provide safe access to all users involved. And so that concludes my presentation. I am available for any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments, board members? Okay, seeing none, I will open it up for any questions or comments from members of the public. Anyone wishing to speak? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. You know, Matt, that was a great presentation, and I think this is a great goal, and it's good to start in these 3 communities. And as you said, we walked through, or had your students walk through 44 communities. 3 is a good start, but we've got a long ways to go, and I think that all of these communities would benefit from these complete street policies, because I think it would make they would definitely improve the life of the residents that live in these communities to be able to get around throughout the community without having to use a car.
They gave me a book that was about that thick. I started looking at it yesterday. Every sidewalk in every community.
Oh, that's great. That's a great inventory to have, and definitely lets you know that your task is daunting. So
thank you very much.
We appreciate the presentation, and that does conclude it. And thank you very much, Matt. We will now take up the addendum. We do have items 1 through 7 that we included on the addendum today, and none of them are presentation items. It's consent calendar items that were going to be on next week's meeting, but which we had to cancel. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ashita and a second by Supervisor Cox to approve the addendum items 1 through 7. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And council, I know you had comment.
Yes, sir. I do. I'm sorry to add to your closed session agenda, but I must ask your board to add an urgency item to it. Your board may add an urgency item to the agenda and take action on it if certain conditions are met. First, the board must publicly identify the item, and then the board must vote to place the item on the agenda. In order to add the item to the agenda, the board must find that there are 2 requirements met: that there is a need to take immediate action, and the need for action came to the attention of the agency after the agenda was posted. The item here is one matter of significant exposure to litigation, and the description of facts known to plaintiff are a tort claim filed by Richard Miller concerning county construction on and near his property. The reason for the urgency is that after even the addendum was posted, county personnel, legal personnel, and risk personnel met with Mr. Miller and believe that the matter may be resolved. However, the statute of limitations will run before your board meets next. And accordingly, we would need to discuss with your board extending that time in order to allow perhaps settlement to take place. And I do need a 4/5 vote.
Motion to hear this matter as urgent item.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. That does conclude open session of today's meeting. Council, do we have need for closed session?
We do items A through T now, and I don't think there are any announcements out. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Mr. Rousseau may have an announcement.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's meeting, and hope you all have a wonderful week. This meeting is adjourned.
I've heard from your colleagues. I have the right to speak. This is America. Okay, this is the addendum. Yes. The one that I added as an urgency item today? And you know what I should do is I should email you a copy of the script because that has the language right in it. Let me see if I can find it.
Yes. This is Jim Rousseau, County Administrative Officer, regarding item R out of closed session regarding the Timothy Satterfield dismissal. Whether to consider the discipline, dismissal, or release of a public employee. On a motion by Supervisor Shida, seconded by Supervisor Ennis, the board voted unanimously to dismiss the Deputy Sheriff 1.
In the matter of the urgency item added as item T on to the board's closed session agenda today by 4/5 vote as an urgency matter, the claim of Miller, the board voted unanimously on motion of Supervisor Worthley, seconded by Supervisor Ennis, to approve a tolling agreement as the first action of defense in that matter.